we're back on the F100 front end after finishing some stuff up in the rear. So if you want to catch up on a few videos, check out the rear end build. There is still a few more things to do, but we've got to get this car off to a couple other shops, get some primer on this thing, get some exhaust made, motors coming out, getting some work done. So we're going to do a few things up here in the front so this body can go while I take the tray off and do a few more things to the rear. But this car originally had this panel and this back bit, which I've cut off. That used to go all the way back, but that's to suit the old Chevy motor. Getting rid of that back bit, we're going to keep the supercharger exposed so that you can see it and it matches that firewall nicely. So I've cut the front off and I'm going to have to mount this front end a little bit and then figure out a shape up in here just so I can cover up to this front bit, because underneath here we've got the air filter up here, so we're going to have to put this panel, and there's some parts that have already been made up here which aren't bad, so we're going to work with what we've got here and shape this up. So I'll probably actually keep this lump because this is actually higher than this area in here, so we'll continue that through. That does start diving down. I'll flatten that off a bit up in here and then kind of come in the opposite direction with a bit of a reverse coming up into the section here. Keep this continuing all the way through back to here and try and make this thing fit and give it something that kind of looks good up here in the front. So we'll run with this and see what we can do. Going to lift this up just a touch and then tack this in position. I'll make some mounts underneath, then this thing can be fully supported. We'll make a frame. The little bracket that I wanted to do setting up under here is done. That fully bolts up here in the rear section, holding this into the position that it needs to be. And I'm thinking about doing a few bolts up in this front section as well. But at the moment, I've marked out the center up here and on the firewall and just shooting a bit of a center line through. And then this part here, I'm just going to cut this out, get rid of that piece entirely, and then I'll do a bit of a paper pattern through here and make this new center section from here, come back to the back of the throttle body, make a new center section, and then have the sides come up and meet into the center section through here, sort of completing this piece here. So next step, we'll be doing this bit in here, and it's probably going to need a little bit of shrinking up through here in the front where it really comes around, and that'll be a nice little template in there to follow through and really crank that around. I may set up a little wire form just up here following this front edge and just bring a bit of wire around here and then have that roll up into this piece here, and then I'll probably tack that wire off to here, and it'll give me a little bit of something to work off and shape to. Change that angle just a bit, make it have a little bit of flow to it. See what this is like. It's a little bit better. Slightly less sharp too. Looks pretty good. This wire form is going to make doing this front section really easy. I've done a bit of a line in through here, out of this center line in here, making it even to these, and that'll be my return coming back. And the sheet up to this front and down to these points here is pretty critical. The rest of it's kind of just structure stuff holding that wire into shape, but there will be a bit of a reverse coming down into here. So I'll make this section in here first, go from here, around here, do some shape down in here, probably tack that piece in, and then do a reverse coming off there into there. So this bit I can kind of do on the fly, just with the shape that's going on in here. I may have to trim a bit more in and just change that line coming down into the reverse a bit. But I do want to get this centerpiece quite nice in through here, because from here, around that throttle body is the most critical part. So I'll get that area there right, and then the rest I can do on the fly. got to put a little bit of shape in this just to get this started a bit, and it's going to need a little bit of shrinking up here in the front, because that up in here needs to move that much. So that's a fair bit. So gonna have to shrink this front around a bit, and then do a fair bit of wheeling up through here, get some shape going on, couple little shrinks on the side, and then when this turns up the other way, gonna need a little stretch down in here. So just this to get a little bit of shape and get started, then we'll take it to the wheel and the hammer. We've got heaps more to go. So back to the wheel, more stretching. This section's starting to look really good, coming up to the throttle body nicely, the way that I wanted it to. It's got a nice bit of shape, so now I'll just start doing this reverse panel in here to fill in these side bits, blend into here, and we'll be pretty done here up in the front. So this is starting to look good, and it's getting to that shape that I really wanted. So finish it off, do these, make it look real nice. I'm just making my little template here for the little side section. I'll do a bit of a curve bit up here, but all of this zone here, that's all going to be stretch. If I was to put a couple little cuts in the sheet here, that would actually lay out a lot nicer and be a little stretch point down in here. So I'll just make my little template in here. It is a small piece. If it was big, I actually would put a few little cuts in there just so the sheet would lay out properly and have a really nice template. But this is small. I can do it just the way I'm doing it here. So a lot of stretch up in here, a little bit of shrink in here, bringing this line around here to match this, just coming into that reverse up in here, and then a bit of extra material down the bottom for that flange to turn in. So we'll do this little template, shape this section up, and then we can start digging some things in. all the mounts and everything underneath, that's all mounted up, bolted in up the front here. And that's how it's basically going to sit here on this build. These bolts are going to be a flush, nice Allen key bolt. So what is on there is actually not what I'm going to be using. It will be nice and smooth through here, but that is exactly where I want. So now I've got to fit up these headlights up in the front. So these headlights roughly are going to be around here. So I'll fit up both sides, tack them in, and then we're going to do a 3D scan in this front because I think a billet aluminium grill is going to be made for this. So it's going to have a custom grill. So I'll fit up these headlights and then we can work off that with scanning to get this thing beautiful. That's the cab and front end on this build, pretty much almost done. So next thing I've got coming up is custom door handles. So once I've done these door handles, a couple other things I've got to do here to finish this up, and this car's almost ready to go. A couple things in the rear end to be done as well, but I'll be taking that rear end off while this goes away, get some stuff done on the motor, get some other things fitted up and some engineering done. So tune in, watch some of the other videos. I'll catch you on the next one.